Welcome back to all those of you who have purchased earlier volumes of my personal A to Z, and a special welcome to any seeing these for the first time. This is part 6, taken from my archive of old and new film of ocean liners and cruise ships. Some of the older material is in black and white, and the quality varies. The newer material is in colour, and except when taking film through a zoom lens at a distance, most is very good quality. With the 64 ships included in this part, we now have a total of just under 300 ships in all 6 parts. I do hope you enjoy it as much as I have enjoyed collecting the material and putting it all together. Aegean Odyssey was built by Santarul N. Galati in Romania. She's had several other names: Norsis, Alcyon, Dolphin, Aegean, Dolphin and Aegean. We saw her first in Dubrovnik at night. She was to have gone through the Corinth Canal, but her draft was too deep. Here we see Aegean Odyssey entering Malta harbour. Alunia was built by Brown on Clydebank for the Cunard line in 1925 and operated the Liverpool to Montreal route. We can join her as she leaves Montreal. Alcantara was built by Holland and Wolff Belfast for the Southampton to La Plata run. In 1939 she became an armed merchant cruiser. We see Aquamarine in Piraeus. She was built by Wärtsilä in Finland, and she now operates the Louis Cruise Line. She was the Nordic Prince, Carousel, Aquamarine and Ariel. I think you would agree with me that she has lovely lines. We see Aquitania from a distance moored off Gibraltar. She was built by Brown Clydebank for the Cunard line in 1913 and operated on the Liverpool to New York route. In 1939 she was taken up as a troop ship and she returned to service in 1948 on the Southampton to Halifax route. The ill-fated Arandora Star, built by Camel Laird Birkenhead for the Blue Star Line in 1927 and employed on the London to La Plata run. She was rebuilt in 1936 mainly for cruising and taken up in 1939 as a troop ship. She was sunk in 1940, carrying mainly POWs, and 761 souls died. We watch as Arcadia arrives in Dubrovnik. She was built by Fincantieri in Italy. It was said that she was originally intended for Cunard as their new Queen Elizabeth, but Carnival had a change of heart and handed her over to P&O. You may have caught in the distance the Costa Fortuna and the Spirit of Adventure. We will see Costa Fortuna later on in this film. Much later in the day, we watched Arcadia as she departed from Dubrovnik. The Asturias of 22,000 tons was built by Harland and Wolff Belfast for Royal Mail. She's seen here as a troop ship. She ended her career in 1949 as an emigrant ship. Another Harland and Wolff built ship, the Athelone Castle, entered service with the Union Castle Line in 1935 and was used on the Southampton to Cape Town route. She was a troop ship from 1939 to 1946 and came back into service in 1947. The Berlin was originally Swedish-American Line's Cristal, built by Armstrong Whitworth of Newcastle. She became the Berlin in 1955 for North German Lloyd and was used on the Bremerhaven to New York run. She's seen here as she crosses the Atlantic from New York. The 1980 Berlin was built by Halswerk Deutsche Werft and was originally named Berlin and then Princess Marjorie. In March 2006, she became Saga's Spirit of Adventure. Built on the Upper Clyde at Govan for Fred Olsen, the Blenheim was used for cruising and as a ferry. To many Fred Olsen cruisers, she looks very similar to Fred Olsen's Black Prince. She is in fact smaller. These pictures of her were taken of her leaving Lanzarote. We see Brilliance of the Seas in Civitavecchia. Her builders were Meyer Werft in Germany, and she's operated by Royal Caribbean International. Using a zoom lens, I filmed her at sea in the Mediterranean. It goes up and down a bit, I'm afraid. The California was built in Newport News, USA for America Line. She was used initially on the New York to San Francisco route. She was renamed Uruguay in 1938, the American Republic Line. She was then a trooper, and later, in 1947, was operated by more Maconic lines. Yet another Harland and Wolff built ship, the Canopic, was built for Dominion Line Liverpool and worked between Liverpool and Boston. In 1903 she became a White Star liner. Carmania, like many of Cunard's ships, was built by Brown on Clydebank and employed on the Liverpool to New York run. In 1914 she became an auxiliary cruiser, and then she trooped from 1916 to the end of the war and reverted to service in 1918 on the Liverpool to New York service. In 1924 she undertook the Liverpool to Montreal route. Built by Mayer Werft in Germany, Celebrity Cruises' Celebrity Century is seen in Istanbul. We see Celebrity Eclipse, initially berthed in Southampton. Later on that afternoon she sailed from Southampton and made her way down the Solent towards the Channel. I mentioned earlier that we would see Costa Fortuna, and here she is entering Dubrovnik. She was built by Cantieri Siestri and is operated by Costa Cruises. Another Costa liner, Costa Mediterranea, was built by Caverna Massa Yards in Finland for Costa Cruises. We can watch as the Costa cruise liner Costa Pacifica docks in Malta. For those passengers gathered on the stern of Minerva, she seems to be coming mighty close. We can watch her now as she turns around and prepares to come into her berth. Still looks mighty close, as she's turned around now and is moving in towards the dock. The Costa Marina was originally a container ship built in 1969. She was rebuilt by Mariotti in Italy for the Costa cruise line. She's seen here in a Norwegian fjord. Costa Serena was built by Fincantieri in Italy and is operated by the Costa cruise line. She's seen here in Istanbul. Cristal, operated by Louis Hellenic Cruises, has had many former names: Silja Opera, Superstar Taurus, Leeward, Sally Albatross, and Viking Saga. She was built by Wärtsilä in Finland in 1980. She's seen here in Piraeus in 2010. Cristal Serenity was built by Chantier d'Atlantique for Cristal Cruises. She's seen here in Malta. She sailed later that evening, and we can watch her as she slips out of the harbour. The Delphin was built by Wärtsilä, Finland. She is operated by Delphin Serazen, Hansa Touristic, but she's seen here in Venice under arrest. The passengers have left the ship, but the crew remain on board. The other ships are the Minerva and the Vistamar. The Duchess of Athol was built by Beardmore and Glasgow in 1927 for the Canadian Pacific Lines. She ran from Liverpool to Montreal. In 1939 she became a troop ship and she was sunk by U-178 in 1942. We see her here as she leaves on a voyage across the Atlantic. Another Canadian Pacific liner, the Empress of Britain, 42,000 tons, and built by Brown on Clydebank in 1930. She also was sunk by a U-boat, U-32 in 1940, whilst serving as a troop ship. Originally, she'd been used on the Southampton to Quebec service. Espagne, built by de France, Port du Bourg, for CGT Lines Le Havre. She was used on the Le Havre to New York service. Built as Kungsholm in 1952 for the Gothenburg, New York route, she was renamed Europa in 1965. Her builders were de Scheldt-Vissingham. She was later operated by North German Lloyd as Europa on the Bremerhaven to New York route. Built in 1910 by Penhoe of Saint-Nazaire and operated by CGT Le Havre, the France, was used on the Le Havre to New York run. In 1914 she became an auxiliary cruiser, and in 1916 a hospital ship. Then she was used for trooping. In 1923 she was refitted for passenger service and laid up in 1932. The Glenartney was built by Caledon SB&E Company Dundee in 1938 for the Glen Line. Her route was the UK to the Far East. We watch as the Grand Princess of Princess Cruises leaves Southampton. She was built by Fincantieri in Italy in 1998. Grand Voyager was originally built as Olympic Voyager by Blom and Voss in 2000. She's operated now by Everjet Cruises. We see her here in Malta. Another casualty of the Second World War, Highland Patriot was built for the Nelson Line by Holland and Wolff in 1931, taken over in 1932 by Royal Mail, which was unfortunate enough to be sunk by U-38 during the Second World War. She's seen here in Nelson Line colours. We get a quick view of Independence of the Sea in Southampton. We can now watch as the insignia docks in Civitavecchia. She was originally built as R1, but now is operated by Oceania Cruises. She was built by Chantier de Atlantique. The Jan Petersen Cohen was built by Netherlands SB Midge, seen here in Amsterdam in a rather run-down condition, and I can only assume that this was during the Depression. She was laid up in the late 1920s, early 1930s. She was used on the Amsterdam to Dutch Indies run, and she was sunk as a block ship in Imogen in 1940. Built by Oskarshamn shipyard in Sweden, Christina Regina is 4,300 tons. She was originally called the Boreer and then the Boar. She's seen here in Helsinki, starting on a cruise. Here we have the Louis Majesty, Built by Caverna Massa in Finland. She's 40,900 tons and operated by Louis Cruise Lines. She was originally the Royal Majesty and then Norwegian Majesty. She's seen here entering Malta. As night drew in, we watched Louis Majesty leaving once again from Malta. Here we have two ships of the Mikael Kalainen class. The first one, I believe, is the Mikael Kalainen. The one behind seems much the same, but I can't identify her. But she's of the same class. They were all built between 1958 and 1960. The Monarch of Bermuda was built by Vickers Armstrong Newcastle in 1931 for Furnace Withy and Company. They ran between New York and Bermuda. In 1939 she was converted to troopship. In 1947 she was damaged, and then in 1949 she became the New Australia and operated between Southampton and Sydney. We see MSC Fantasia in Istanbul. She was built in Acre Yards in France in 2008. Orient Queen was built by A.G. Wesser, Germany. Has been named before Bolero and Starward. She's seen here in Civitavecchia. We watched her sail from the decks of Minerva. The next two ships are easily confused. In Naples we see Princess Danae. She was built by Swan Hunter in the UK. Started life as Port Melbourne, then Theros Express, Danae, Anai, Starlight Princess and Baltica in 1996. Princess Daphne has been known as Royal Viking Sun, Seabourn Sun, Port Sydney, Aquitania, Express, Daphne, Switzerland, Ocean Odyssey, Ocean Monarch. Both ships are operated by Classic International Cruises. We see her here in Civitavecchia. The Queen Elizabeth, seen here on only her second cruise. She was built in Italy by Fincantieri for the Cunard line. The Queen Victoria and the P&O's Arcadia, built by Fincantieri, have very much the same hull. Saga Ruby was built by Swan Hunter, originally as a Vista Fjord, and then she became the Coronia before being taken over by Saga Cruises and renamed Saga Ruby. She's seen here in Dover preparing for a cruise. Sky Wonder was originally Sky Princess and then Pacific Sky. She was built by CNIM in France, and she's now operated by Pullmantur Cruises. She's seen here in Istanbul. We now have two ships passing in Hong Kong harbour, both operated by Star Cruises. Superstar Gemini is going out and Star Pisces is coming in. Let me start with the Superstar Gemini. She was built by Union Navale de Levante in Spain and was originally named Crown Jewel. Star Pisces was originally built in 1989 as the Calypso. In 1994 she became Star Pisces. Both ships at the time of taking this picture were operated by Star Cruises. Gradually, the two ships move towards each other. They will soon pass. Renamed Sovereign in 2008, originally the Sovereign of the Seas, was built by Chantier d'Atlantique in France for the Royal Caribbean International Line and now cruises for Pullmantur. We see her here approaching the port of Civitavecchia and later tied up. We've seen Switzerland before in the guise of Princess Daphne. She is seen here being operated by Dreamline Cruises. She was originally built by Swan Hunter, Wigham. Piano's Ventura, built by Fincantieri in Italy. She's seen here leaving Southampton over the top of the buildings on Town Pier. She was going on a short 7-day cruise down to the Canaries. The Vista Mare, seen here in Venice, was built by Union Navale de Levante in Spain for planned tours and partners. The Western Land, built by Holland and Wolff, the Red Star Line. She was employed on the Antwerp to New York route. And finally we come to Winchester Castle, built by Holland and Wolff in Belfast for the Union Castle Line in 1930 and employed on the Southampton to Cape Town route. And that concludes part 6 of my A to Z of ocean liners and cruise ships.